Welcome to this week's Techie Tip. In this week's session, we're going to talk about canned responses in Gmail. Canned responses are a very handy feature if you have a series of responses that you type over and over and over again. They're pretty consistent. You may only change a word here or there, but for the most part, it's the same message that you send often. An example of a canned response that I have is the caution phishing email circulating. As you know, we get a lot of attacks and a lot of bad email sent to us from all kinds of evil users, for lack of a better description. And I have this email all set to go that I just pull it right up. I do a few edits and I send it off. So how do you create those canned comments? The first thing that you might want to do is open up your email account, go to your Sprocket settings, and make sure that canned responses are turned on. Canned responses are in a tab called Labs. Labs is a pretty neat feature from Google. Basically, they have experimental features all listed below, and you can enable or disable those features if you're interested in exploring them. Sometimes they work pretty good. Sometimes Google removes them from the Labs drop-down and you'll never see them again. Canned responses has been a pretty decent lab to evaluate. So if you don't have it at the very top of your list like I do, you can simply search for that by typing in canned responses. But because I have this enabled, it's right on top, and the only thing that I have to do is make sure that it's enabled, scroll down to the bottom, click Save Changes, and now when I return to my email, canned responses will be enabled. So let's do that. Let's go to our inbox and find out if they are in fact enabled. Simply click on your Compose button, and in your Compose box, you'll notice in the bottom right corner next to that little trash icon, there's a button called More Options. When you click on that, you'll now have a feature called Canned Responses enabled. So how do you create a canned response? They're pretty simple. The first thing that you would do is you would type in your response. So this might be something such as homework. And you would go in and type the email or the information. So you may actually have a bit more information than this example presents here, but as you can see, I've enabled canned responses. I began composing an email. I've written the email so that I know what I want in this canned response, and now I have to save it as a canned response. I'm going to return to my little drop-down More Options button. I'm going to select that. I'm going to choose or highlight the canned responses. And this is kind of important so that you get a sense. There are three types of canned responses. There's the insert, there's the save, and there's the delete. When we're creating one, we actually want to go to the saved section of our dialog box here. So I'm going to select New Canned Response, and the minute I do that, it actually puts in the name of the response based on the subject that I have entered in my email. And if I'm okay with that, I simply click the OK button, and my canned response has been created. If I want to add to that subject, I could certainly say add a bit more text to the type of canned response that I want and click the OK button. So now, if I return back to that More Options box, go to Canned Responses, you can see that I have several of them right here. I have homework assignments. There's my caution phishing email circulating. And here's a canned response that I'm going to show you how we can delete. So that's how you create the canned response. How do you actually use a canned response? How do you get it into your email? Well, basically, you do the same thing. You click on your Compose button. You go to your More Options feature. You select Canned Responses and choose the canned response that you're looking to use at that moment. So let's pull up my caution phishing email circulating. As you can see, this is pretty much the basic email that everyone sees when we have an incident. I have put in bold some text that I know I need to edit. And I can certainly edit any other piece of this email before I send it out. But it's all typed up, and all I have to do at this moment is click in my to box, add the recipients, and then click the send button. So that's kind of a pretty neat feature to having canned responses. I'm actually going to discard this draft because I'm not sending this email out. So I'm just going to click on that little trash can. So what are some other nice features about this? Well, you can certainly go into your canned responses, select them, and say, okay, I am not going to use this canned response anymore. It's something that I had with my students last year. Or we no longer have this content area, we no longer cover this content area, so this canned response is no longer relevant. As you can see, I have a section called Delete. I can simply select the canned response that I want from that Delete menu, and when I do that, it'll come up and say, Confirm Delete Canned Response. I'm going to click OK. That canned response is now no longer part of my saved set of canned responses. So this is a little bit about how you use a canned response. It's a terrific feature, and if you have those kinds of emails that you send out or email responses that you send out frequently, I would highly recommend putting together a couple of canned responses. And that's our techie tip for this week.